Yo, 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 welcome back to another episode of the Celtics Chronicle with me, your boy, Adam Taylor. As usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Mike Weber. What's poppin', Mike?
Hey, how we doing, man? What's going on?
Good, man. We took a few days after you went to Ohio. We recorded like 3 episodes and had technical issues on all 3 of them, which is far from ideal, but here we are. So we're kind of closing in on the draft. We're going to have some draft content coming out in the next few days, but this Giannis stuff is still taking up the airwaves, man. And if it's floating around, we have to address it. Today, we've kind of looked at every angle, what it would take to move Jaylen Brown for Giannis, what those deals would look like. We've talked about the way it's being covered, the misinformation, how to find the real information. We've talked about everything, man. We're at the point now where we're just kind of done. I feel like everybody else is done too. But one angle we haven't covered is an angle I keep seeing being floated around online, and it theoretically works. If you plug it into any trade machine, you can figure a way to make this happen. But it's also the worst possible outcome, in my opinion, and we're going to dive into why. And that's whether the Celtics should try and grab Giannis without giving up Jaylen Brown and create a big three of Giannis, Brown, and Tatum. This is some 2K shit that people be talking about right now where, I tried it on 2K and we went fucking undefeated in the playoff. I get it. In Dreamland, this makes perfect sense, but there's a lot of reasons just from roster building to everything else that make this kind of a bad idea. But before we get into that, Mike, I want to know from where you're sitting before I give you all my reasons why I'm against it because I am inherently against big three teams in the modern NBA. With this current CBA, I'm against them flat out, point blank, period. So I've got very strong opinions here. So before I try and sway you, I want to see where you're at with it.
It sounds highly unrealistic. And unfortunately, we've spent so much time talking about the cap, the aprons, the CBA, the way the league is running lately. Let's take a look at the last 2 champions, the Knicks and the Thunder, the way those rosters are comprised. It's hard to imagine this being fathomable. First off, who the hell is going to shoot the ball? I mean, like, who's going to shoot? I mean, look, Tatum and Brown are solid shooters. We're going to get tons of rim running, all the dunks Brad dreams about. But who the hell is going to shoot the ball? I mean, what's that lineup look like? And also, are people even understanding when they're doing these fantasy trades, how that limits them from a cap perspective and what the options are? I mean, yeah, if I'm on my PS5 right now, it sounds pretty cool. You know what I mean? I'll create a character and I'll put him on that team too, just to shoot threes in the corner. But realistically, I don't know how this, I mean, it sounds cool. Before the CBA, back when we were talking like Garnett, Pierce, and Ray Allen, that sounds really cool. Dwayne Wade, Bosh, and LeBron, that sounds really cool. I don't see how this makes sense to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're on your PS5, you can turn off the salary cap restrictions. You can do whatever you want. You can have a great time. In real life, that's not really an option. And I think that the first and foremost, as you kind of alluded to, is where's the shooting coming from? More importantly, where are the touches coming from? Now, we've all seen the discourse surrounding Tatum and Brown throughout their careers about being 1A and 1B or being A and B. Who's your first option? Who's your second option? And the discourse has been nonstop for years, questioning whether Jaylen Brown is happy with being a second option, questioning whether Brown should be the first option. You can go down those rabbit holes. We've all been there, right? You add Giannis into this. Now, the question isn't, is Brown a second option? Brown is clearly your third option. He goes down to number 3. Then the question is, who takes 1? Does Giannis take 1 with Tatum at 2? Is Tatum still your primary guy? Now, in my head, Tatum becomes your primary ball handler. Giannis becomes your primary finisher, and then Jaylen Brown becomes your release valve. That's kind of how I would see everything.
Yeah.
Is Brown going to be happy with that? Does Tatum make peace with that? Now, Tatum would have to make peace with being the 2 and the primary creator anyway. If Giannis came, that's given. But now he's got to look out for 2 guys as well as trying to get his own.
Yeah.
So touches get really strained instantly because you're still going to have to find touches for whoever else is left on that roster. You have to get them the ball too because it's the only way to bend the defense. How do all 3 of these guys eat when each one of them has a claim to being the best player on a contending team elsewhere?
Yeah.
I find that in itself like a really big hurdle before we start looking at the cap implications, the roster building implications that come with it, how you lose certain access to certain exceptions, just from a straight basketball standpoint. And we can even just avoid talking about the spacing right now because that's an issue we're going to address in a moment. Just touch it. How do you keep these 3 guys happy? Because Tatum's going to have the ball because he's going to be the best playmaker out the 3. Giannis is going to need the ball because when it comes to driving kick offense, he's going to be the best guy on the team to get those options open. Jaylen Brown's going to need to kind of get in where he fits in, and I don't see him being happy with that. He's already spoke about sacrificing for the team
Yeah.
like what he had to accept. And that was as a second option. Imagine it now next to Giannis and Tatum. That alone should be enough reason for pause.
Yeah. Tatum also is like the world's most elite level glue guy. The ability to fill whatever role is needed, the guy can do. The game slows down for him. You've even seen his playmaking. I'm not going to call it LeBron-esque, but you did see him make that jump where he went from being an elite athlete who scores one-on-one and shoots a lot of threes to that NBA championship run where the facilitation was unreal. I mean, behind the back passes to Al, the chemistry he has with all the other rim running and all outside shooting with Pritchard and White and stuff. He has always seemed willing to be flexible and do what's best with the team. Giannis already has an MVP. How many MVPs do we have? 3? 2. Okay, 2. I didn't know if I was getting me Jokic confused on how many they have, but Giannis has 2 MVPs. As the alpha, he's won an NBA championship. Tatum can't say that. Brown, I think this season may have made that even more challenging for him to be more willing to acquiesce and not be an alpha on a team, because now he's like, this was my favorite season. Look at me. I could be the big dog on a team. And where does that fall? That does not sound like something that's realistic at all because of that. Just from a chemistry perspective, it doesn't make sense.
I don't see it working. I see Brown asking out within a few months, and at which point you might as well have just traded Brown. If he doesn't ask out, it's going to be messy. Not messy as in he's going to be a problem within the locker room. I think he's too professional for that. Not messy as in he's going to be complaining to the media again. I think he'd be too professional for that. I reckon we'd get some very thinly veiled Twitch streams through the season, but messy just in terms of fit. Messy in terms of
just basketball.
Does Brown kind of put his head down sometimes and go ISO when it would have been better to move the ball? Now, he's guilty of that at the best of times, but if he's feeling a little bit slighted or he feels like he should be above somebody else, you don't know. Like, and this is all, like, we don't know what would be going through his mind. This is all conjecture. We're not saying that this is what would happen, but it's a possibility, right? Then you add in Mazzulla's 5-out system. Now, Mazzulla has spoken before, and there's a very good point overall that if you play 5-out, cutting often impacts spacing in a negative way as much as a positive way. Because when a guy cuts, you drag a defender, now you shrink the floor, depending on where the cut's coming from. If you've got Giannis and Brown and both of them are off ball, you can run a screening action for one of them to get one of them open, to get one of them coming off a stampede cut. You can run wedge actions to put one of them in the post. You can do things for one side of the floor, but you need the other guy to move, and you don't want them just shaking and lit around the perimeter. You want them cutting. Now, if Mazzulla's still married, probably the best way of putting it, to his 5-out heavy 3-point offense, but 2 of your best 3 guys are better in the mid-range and at the rim, there's going to need to be some adjustments. It cannot be, well, we're going to play by the math when 2 of our best players aren't elite 3-point shooters. Now, Brown can hit a catch and shoot 3. That's not a question. It's Brown is better taking mid-range 2s. He's better getting to the rim and finishing through contact that way. Giannis is better just yamming it home. There has to be an adjustment there. And again, it's about making sure you have the floor space in the shooters around them to accentuate what they have. And the amount of talent you would need to give up in a trade to bring Giannis back with giving up Jaylen Brown, the shooting would be a limited amount. And then you need to go and find guys with this small amount of assets that you've got left to kind of complement them. And I don't think it would be an instant championship the way some people are thinking. Maybe you keep Scheinman if you move on from Hauser and there's one shooter. Maybe you keep Luka Garza, there's 2. You need more. You need shooting.
Yeah, we're not ready for the Max Strus era. You know what I mean? Like was that where we're headed? Where we're giving guys who probably should be getting time in the G League real rotational minutes because we're lacking that much depth too, you know? That's kind of crazy. I guess, can I ask this question? I guess here's a follow-up thought. Does Brad acquire this scenario to force Joe to change the way he plays? Because that's the conversation. Or I guess the follow-up thought I have would be, is there a world where the Celtics make this trade to get it done before the draft, knowing that they still have to facilitate and trade Jaylen after the fact, instead of, doing a clean 3-way, like boom, 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 because it feels like there's just so much hanging up there with that. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to me depth-wise, but I mean, definitely from a system perspective, I know that the Celtics in the regular season did some remarkable things with a dearth of talent, right? Like literally, like the amount of points they put up, considering the lack of rotational support, was incredible. But in the playoffs, things certainly, the light shined on some of that where it changes, things get a little more physical, and the moment becomes bigger for your rotational players and your role guys. But I don't know, does Brad do this and say, okay, Joe, figure this out, you're a genius? Is that possible? Is that a thing? Is there a new offense they run? I don't know. I mean, Mazzulla Ball's kind of been his thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, any coach has to adapt to the talent on the floor. And I'm not saying Mazzulla's incapable of that. I'm saying, is he willing to do that. And we can't say yes or no. We'd have to see to know. And that's just the way it is. You can guess. You can throw an educated guess of most likely not. He's going to try and find a way to win his way with those guys. Maybe he tasks Giannis with just being a driving kick guy. Giannis isn't going to be very happy with that. Maybe he takes away the green light for Brown in the mid-range. Brown won't be very happy for that. Like, you don't know how it's going to go. But what I will say is acquiring Giannis any way, shape or form, whether that's with Brown and Tatum, whether that's by sending out Brown, will force a change because it has to.
Yeah.
It flat out has to. And that's when we're going to see whether Mazzulla is willing or not. And I think that, I won't say Stevens hinted at it, but it was very clear that Stevens wanted a bit of a change in terms of approach. And moving for a guy like Giannis is the catalyst for that change happening. Right? The argument here isn't against trading for Giannis. The argument of this episode, at least, is against trading for Giannis while keeping Brown and Tatum. And I think that any coach, as good as they are, would love to have those three guys on a team. But if you don't have the supporting cast, which they won't, then you're going to have a bad time. And look, here's my argument straight up here. First and foremost, let's start looking at the numbers. Now, again, we're not out here advocating for billionaires to stay billionaires. We're not trying to save billionaires money. What we are trying to do is make a realistic guess at why this isn't going to happen and why that allows these billionaires to spend more money moving forward. And the idea here is maximum value for every dollar spent. And that's what any businessman's going to want. And it's assumingly what Chisholm wants because they're trying to duck under the repeater. So if you trade Brown for Giannis right now, you're basically matching salaries. So the Celtics are where they are within, I think it's like $1 million either way of where they are at the cap sheet right now. Nothing changes. You're still under the first apron. You can still avoid the repeater tax. You still have access to the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. Everything pretty much stays the same. You just got $1 million less to play with or around that mark. If you trade for Giannis while keeping Jaylen and Jason, now you're back in deep into second apron.
Oh, you are.
And there's nothing out. Now, the reason that's a bad thing is because you need to stay out of the luxury tax this year to reset the repeater. Now, if anybody wants to know the value of resetting the repeater, go onto the channel. While you're there, hit subscribe, hit like, show some love, and then go down to the episode I did with Yazzie Gosling of Third Apron, and he will explain the reasons why resetting this repeater not only helps now, but opens the checkbook up next year and for a few years after that.
Yeah, the slingshot theory being floated by Scal.
Yeah, you're basically pulling the slingshot back now, ready to let go ahead of next season. You sign about getting rid of Brown and you keep the big three or the big three. Instantly, that's gone. You're a second apron team from jump. You lose the draft pick, the restrictions come back. It becomes incredibly hard to rebuild around these.
Who the hell do you extend? How do you prioritize that?
Well, then
three guys.
That's my next thing, right? Then this year, you've got to negotiate nearly $400 million worth of extension or $350 million. I think Giannis is like 240 or something. Brown is like 2. Then Tatum's going to become eligible. If Brown holds off on the extension this year, he's going to be at like 3 for 200 on next year. Before you know it, you're putting $500 million in salary extensions across your top 3 guys, and you've still got another 12 roster spots to fill.
And all those restricted free agents and decisions they have to make on all the wings and stuff. And never mind Pritchard, what's going on with him down the road. Like, there's so much Cada, so many choices and decisions they have to make. They need to be, like you said, I don't have a lot of empathy for billionaires per se, but they don't make their money by being haphazard and waste their money. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know?
It's also not the smartest way to build a team, not under the new CBA. If you look at what teams are doing now, they have like a clear-cut star and then elite level depth everywhere. And if they have 2 stars, they do that with high level depth for like 10 positions, maybe 11. After that, it starts to drop off. The Knicks had 2 stars, Karl Anthony Towns, Jaylen Brown.
But they have elite role players, like superstar role players.
That's what I'm saying.
They have 5 Derek Whites, right?
Yeah, elite depth. It's the same with the Thunder. They have Shy and then elite depth. You can plug in another name if you want to say there's 2 stars. I mean, up until this year,
Jalen Williams did make All NBA team last year, I guess. But Chet's kind of like just a superstar role player too.
You can go that way. If you look at, I know they didn't win, but if you look at the Pacers, it's Tyrese Halliburton and a bunch of high-level depth, where it's interchangeable pieces left, right, and center. And you go back a few years since this new CBA came in, that is pretty much the blueprint for success.
Yeah, they don't want anybody. They don't want teams to continue. Look at the parity. We've had a new champion every year for the last 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's a coincidence. I think that's the design, the parity. That's what they want.
And it's not just that, it's teams have understood that these big three teams, while amazing on paper, while when they work, they are damn near unbeatable.
Yeah.
They're incredibly expensive. They come at a cost of a team really struggling to rebuild after for a few years because of what they give up to get to that position in the first place. And under the new CBA, they're damn near unsustainable beyond a 2-year window. As we saw with the with the Kristaps, Drew, like it's 2-year windows where you're at.
Right.
Now, if you're trying to maximize a player's prime, like Tatum, who's going to have 3, 4, 5 years in his prime left, 2-year windows aren't going to cut it. You want a sustainable team that's going to get you 3 or 4 years of that 5-year prime where you're at the top, so you don't risk losing him. And I think that when I'm looking around at this potential for a big three, the math behind it, the cap math behind it, to my limited understanding, just makes no goddamn sense.
It is what it is. I think it's like you said, we'll circle back. It sounds great. It's a Galaxy NBA 2K thought process for an antiquated thought process. The NBA doesn't work this way anymore. You have to adapt, overcome, be deeper, have more talent. And I think that's the direction the team has to go. And it sounds cool, but if it was the big 3 league with Ice Cube, it'd be perfect. It's not.
If we look at it like this, that's 3 Supermax contracts on one team. So what's that, like 35, 37, 40%, like 75% minimum of your whole cap sheet is taken up by 3 guys. So you've got to find elite role players across 12 positions. And now, obviously, you're going to have a couple of guys kind of cover from the trade to get Giannis, but it's not going to be many. So let's say they take up 5%. So now you've got 20 cap sheets, round out 10 guys. How are you going to do that and be successful? What 10 guys are they going to be? Because at one point, I'm really considering it's going to be me and you. You know what I mean? Sub me and coach.
I'm very unselfish, Joe. I'll pass the ball to the open guy every time, I promise.
Like, I'm all right, man. I've got small NBA height. I'm like 6'3". I can pass you for about 30 seconds of an NBA game.
I'm like a fire hydrant. I'll set screens and probably die. No big deal.
I can give you 30 seconds of a minus 50 in a plus minus. Do you know what I mean? I can give you that, but that's going to be kind of the guys they're looking for.
And I mean, this
let someone score on me while giving 100% effort and get absolutely cooked for a good 30 seconds. I can do that for you. But that's going to be the type of conversations they'd be having with guys around the league. Like, how many minutes?
Never mind, God forbid. And I'm not trying to project this, but God forbid there's an injury. Then you're possibly extending guys. You're stuck in cap purgatory, complete hell, which is what you don't want. You don't want to be a team that drafts the 11th to 15th pick every year. You're in the play-in. That's not what we want. This is Boston. That's not how we roll.
You're Washington during the John Wall and Brad Beal era. That's where they were. And look, if we're being honest with ourselves, we've got Tatum coming off his Achilles, right? Okay, he came back last season, but it flared up when it flared up. This is his first full season back. You've got Giannis with an injury history. Granted, I do believe that Milwaukee held him out longer than they did because they were pulling the plug. Nevertheless, Giannis has an injury history. Brown has a history of knee tendinopathy. He's had that for years. That doesn't seem to limit him very much.
And hamstring sometimes too.
And hamstring. Now, they don't seem to limit him very much, but he's getting older. Sooner or later, that stuff will catch up.
Yeah.
All 3 guys have a reason to be concerned. You can live with 2 of them if your depth is elite because you feel like there's enough talent there for one of the 2 stars to lead you with the depth. We've just saw what that can do with this past season with Jaylen. What you can't live with is 1 or 2 of them guys go down for a stretch and you have no depth because all your money's going on the 2 of the 3 guys that are in the treatment room for the next few months. It's just. And look, you can look at Golden State as an example of this a few years back when there was like Clay and Draymond and Steph all on big money and some of them had missed time and it just didn't work. And they kind of held on to that dynasty too long and they still have in X.
Yeah.
But again, it's just a cautionary tale of like you build a big 3 without the depth. It only takes one thing to go wrong.
And the Jimmy Butler contract doesn't look so great right now for them. That's for sure.
I mean, it's a tradable asset. That's probably about as far as they can get, right?
Yeah.
But this is where I'm at with it all. And this is why I'm completely against it. Now, look, I'm not against trading for Giannis with a Jaylen deal. I'm not. And this isn't me saying get Jaylen out of here. This isn't me saying anything of the sort. Giannis is the best player. Point blank, period, at this point. And if you want to build a championship team, you try and acquire the best players possible. And that, to me, is a Tatum and Giannis duo. I'm also big on sometimes it's better to roll the dice we know what Tatum and Brown bring, and that would be really hard to move on from. We don't know what Giannis and Tatum can bring, and that's a bit scary. But 2 top 5, top 7 guys is better than a top 5/top 7 plus a top 15. And that's what the Celtics have right now. Someone in that 5 to 7 range, when fully healthy. I know the Ringer put him at 13, but that's because of the injury. And then a guy that's top 15 in Brown. That is never going to be as good, on paper at least, as 2 top 5, top 7 guys. And I do think that Giannis and Tatum's skill sets complement each other really well.
Yeah. Brown has similar styles of play to Giannis. Not the same, but similar. And is not anywhere near the same playmaking or facilitator that Tatum is. Tatum's elite. He's one of the best in the league, especially for his size. Maybe other than Jokic or LeBron, maybe probably the best at that size and it's being big. So I'm with that. Look, I think the thing that I thought was pretty cool was Giannis was 6th in the NBA last year in dunks, despite only playing 35 games, and then led the NBA in dunks the previous 3 or 4 seasons. So, I mean, not to harp back on it, but for those folks who are like, oh, Adam and Mike, they don't like Jaylen, blah, blah, blah. It's not that. It's just, look, it's like this. Brad said it. We need to get to the rim more. I mean, nobody seems to do that better than Giannis.
He's also been one of the top guys in the league for kickouts to 3-point shots and kickouts to 3-point assists. He's also a better defender than Jaylen. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's a former defensive player. Do you know what I mean? Now, Jaylen is a great defender. I'm not taking anything away from him. His defense against Luka in that series was a big reason why the Celtics won a championship. His on-ball defense overall is exceptionally good, but it's not Giannis.
Anybody who liked Rob Williams, anybody who loved the Rob Williams experience and bragged about that. Remember, Rob was getting Defensive Player of the Year votes. Smart won it. Think about Giannis and what he provides from a help defense perspective. You get it.
Like Tatum's an elite helper. His help defense is fantastic. You add in Giannis helping as well. Okay, your point under falls down a little bit, but the length that walls up in that perimeter, inside that perimeter, and takes away, it's going to be really hard to score on them on the interior, and they're going to have enough length to bother you on the perimeter. So look, again, I do think that Giannis is the better player. Do I think the Celtics trade for him? I'm not sure. I know Windhorst said, I'm going to read that quote if it's still up, actually. Yeah, so Windhorst today on the Hoop Collective. I understand that there's this sort of heat around Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics. I am not a believer that Jaylen Brown is not going to be a Celtic at the start of the season. There's a bit of a weird way of saying that, but we all get it. I believe there's a very good chance Jaylen Brown is staying put with Jason Tatum. There is a very good chance, let's be honest. There's also a chance that he's not, and if he's not, then Giannis is the best guy to bring in for that position. But a 3-man rotation is the wrong call. It's the wrong choice.
Yeah. If I could make a plea real quick to the ownership and management for the Bucks, please make a trade ASAP. I'm begging you. To the Celtics, not to the Celtics. Please just make it. Please.
I don't even care. Yeah. And I'll be honest, if this happened, this would be the 4th episode straight that we've recorded and had to bin.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care if it meant this Giannis stuff was over before I edited this and uploaded it. Do you know what I mean? I'd be okay with that. Like if the Giannis trade happened before I'd even uploaded this, I would upload this little segment to prove that we recorded, and I'd be completely fucking fine.
Same.
With that, everybody, we're kind of done. Again, we're trying to go a little bit longer on these episodes, but there's only so many times you can hit a Giannis subject.
Yeah. The next time we say Giannis, Adam, I want it to be because we're talking about the trade being done.
It should be a drinking game at this point. Celtics podcast says Giannis, take a shot. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got to go to the scoring in a minute, so I won't be drinking. Yeah. But with that, everybody, appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate the love. Make sure you like, subscribe. I've put the newsletter link in the comment section as a pinned comment. Click on through, subscribe there too. Show Mike some love online, and we'll catch you soon. Peace.